Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. We spent a lot of time talking about the what in sports. Who won, who lost, who dropped the ball.
Right, the highlights.
Exactly. But today, we are going to obsess over the why. Specifically, why the South African Springboks, a team that is famously known for brute force, might actually be the smartest room in world rugby right now.
It is a fascinating contradiction. You look at them on the pitch and you just see this incredible physical dominance. But the engine running that machine is surprisingly cerebral.
It really is. And we aren't just speculating here today. We are unpacking a specific theory from February 2026, straight from Planet Rugby and the Behind the Ruck show. And this theory comes from none other than All Blacks legend Tana Umaga.
Which, that puts some serious weight behind it right off the bat.
It does. Umaga argues that while everyone focuses on the Boks' physicality, their true edge, the thing that keeps them winning titles, is what he calls diversity of thought.
Yeah.
It sounds like something you'd hear in a Silicon Valley boardroom, not a rugby locker room.
But, as we will see, it is absolutely the secret sauce that has created this modern dynasty.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts of Rassie Erasmus's brain, I want to make sure you are locked in for the season. If you love getting into the weeds of the game and understanding the strategies that define champions, please hit that subscribe button for Rugby Obsession right now. We have some incredible deep dives coming up, and you won't want to miss them.
So let's set the stage here. We are in early 2026. If you look back at the last 8 years, the Springboks' resume under head coach Rassie Erasmus is, frankly, ridiculous.
It's basically video game numbers at this point.
It really is. They win the World Cup in Japan in 2019. Then, despite missing huge chunks of time due to the pandemic, they come right back and beat the British and Irish Lions in 2021.
Which is a series win that is arguably tougher than a World Cup because you only get a shot at it once every 12 years.
Exactly. Then they go to France in 2023, playing in the host nation's backyard, mind you, and defend their World Cup title. Back-to-back champions.
Yeah.
And just to prove they aren't done, they win the Rugby Championship in 2024 and again in 2025.
It is a dynasty. There is just no other word for it. But the thing about dynasties is that they usually get stale. You win, you get arrogant, you stop changing things.
Complacency sets in.
Right. But Rassie Erasmus seems to have the exact opposite problem. He literally can't stop tinkering.
He is the mad scientist of world rugby. And before we even get to the diversity of thought concept, we have to look at his track record of innovation. He treats the accepted rule book of how to play like a suggestion box.
The most famous example, of course, being the bench.
The bench. Traditionally, for decades, rugby teams used a 5-3 split. 5 forwards, 3 backs. It was safe. It covered your injuries across the board.
It was essentially the don't lose strategy.
Correct. But Erasmus looked at the data. He realized that modern test matches are won in the collisions, in those last 20 minutes when bodies are just exhausted. So in 2019, he introduces the 6-2 split, 6 forwards, 2 backs.
Which gave birth to the bomb squad. You essentially changed your entire forward pack in the second half. It's terrifying for the opposition.
And just when teams started figuring that out, or trying to match it, he went to the 2023 World Cup and unveiled the 7-1 split.
Yeah, 7 forwards and 1 back.
1 back.
I still get anxious just thinking about that. It is such a massive gamble. Because if 2 of your backs get injured, you have a flanker playing on the wing, you are basically daring the rugby gods to strike you down.
It is incredibly high risk, but it's a calculated high reward. And this is a key point Tana Umaga makes in the source material. Erasmus sets the trends. In 2019, people called the 6-2 split reckless. By 2026, everyone is doing it.
Club teams, international teams.
They are all trying to copy the blueprint. He moves first, takes the heat from the media, proves it works, and then the rest of the world has to follow.
Right. But the bench is mostly physical tactics.
Yeah.
That is about fresh legs and big bodies. The part of this analysis that really explains their longevity is the shift in who Rassie hires for his coaching staff.
This is the Tony Brown pivot. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting.
To understand the pivot, you have to understand the traditional identity of South African rugby. If you were building a typical Springbok game plan in a lab, what does it look like?
It's huge. A massive forward pack that loves to maul, and a fly half who basically kicks the leather off the ball for territory. It's pragmatic. It's conservative.
We will strangle you until you make a mistake, and then we will kick 3 points.
Bok rugby. It is incredibly effective, but it has limitations. You can't always rely on strangulation, especially when laws change. So in 2024, Erasmus decides the attack needs to evolve. He needs creativity. He needs a bit of chaos. Who does he hire?
Tony Brown, a former All Black.
Let's just pause on that for a second. The Springboks and the All Blacks have the fiercest rivalry in the sport. It is ingrained in the culture from childhood. Hiring a Kiwi to run the Springbok attack is like, well, it's like the head of Apple hiring the lead designer from Samsung.
Or the Yankees bringing in the Red Sox hitting coach. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's almost sacrilegious to the purists.
And yet, Rassie did it. And Tony Brown isn't just any New Zealander. He is a genuine maverick. As a player and a coach, he was always known for innovation. Flat passes, intricate moves, playing incredibly fast and loose with the ball in hand. He is the absolute antithesis of conservative.
So you take the most structured, physical team in the world, and you inject this chaotic, creative genius into the coaching block. What actually happens?
Evolution happens. If you look at the Bucks in 2024 and 2025, they look different. The power is still there. They haven't lost their core DNA, but they are dangerous with the ball now. They attack space in ways they never used to. They run lines that look decidedly Kiwi.
And this brings us back to Tana Umaga. He was on the Behind the Ruck show, which is hosted by Wanda Young and Rudy Page, two former Bucks, by the way, so the vibe of the conversation was fantastic. And Umaga breaks down why this specific hire was so genius.
Umaga calls it smart, but he goes much deeper into the psychology of it. He tries to reconstruct Rassie Erasmus's internal monologue. He imagines Rassie looking at his team, looking at the changing laws of the game around speeding up play, and admitting to himself, I haven't got that knowledge.
That is a knowledge gap right there. And honestly, for a guy who has won 2 World Cups, to look in the mirror and admit I don't know enough is incredibly rare.
So rare.
Ego usually prevents that entirely.
It does. Umaga argues that Erasmus realized something profound. If I hire another South African coach, we're just going to think similarly.
This is the danger of homogeneity.
Precisely. If you hire a guy who went to the same South African schools, played in the same Currie Cup system, and learned from the exact same mentors, he is going to have the same answers to the same questions you do.
And as Umaga puts it, we're all going to make the same mistake.
That is the defining line of this analysis for me. If we all come through the same system, we're all going to make the same mistake. By hiring Tony Brown, Erasmus deliberately introduced a variable that didn't fit the South African pattern. He introduced friction.
Friction is usually seen as a bad thing in team dynamics, though.
Not in high-performance environments. You actively want someone in the room who says, why are we doing it this way? You want someone to challenge the status quo, because if everyone just nods and agrees, no one is actually thinking.
Umaga talks about the ego aspect of this, too. He says this approach requires removing the ego completely. It's not about my way is the way.
It's about what's best for this group. It takes a very secure leader to have a subordinate, especially someone from a rival culture, say, I think we should do this differently, and for the leader to say, actually, you're right, let's do it your way.
It is admitting that you have blind spots.
And then actively hiring people to fill those exact blind spots. Most leaders hire people who mirror them because it feels comfortable. It feels validating to have your ideas echo back to you. Erasmus hired someone who challenges the very identity of how they play because he knew that's what was needed to stay ahead of the curve.
I want to pause here for a second and throw this out to you, the listener. We are talking about hiring rivals, changing identities, and letting go of ego. What do you make of this strategy? Do you agree with Umaga that this diversity of thought is the main reason the Bucks are staying on top? Or is it still just about the physical dominance at the end of the day?
Right. Is it the brain or the brawn?
Or is the brain unlocking the brawn in entirely new ways? We'd love to hear your take. And while you're thinking about it, make sure you are subscribed to Rugby Obsession. Join the community because we want to have these debates with you directly.
Let's connect this to the bigger picture now, specifically regarding the greatest rivalry.
Yes. The Planet Rugby article mentions the upcoming test series in South Africa, and the stakes for that are just huge.
They are massive. And Tana Umaga offers a really interesting perspective from the All Blacks side of the fence. He admits, quite candidly, that the All Blacks used to be the trendsetters.
They were the gold standard. For a long time, the whole rugby world just watched what New Zealand did and desperately tried to copy it.
Exactly. But Umaga says trying to keep ahead of the trend is difficult. He acknowledges that the roles have reversed somewhat. Now, it's Erasmus and the Bucks who are seeing where the game is going, specifically regarding laws and officiating, and they are adapting before everyone else even realizes a change is needed.
That has to be a little bit painful for an All Blacks legend to admit, right? that they are now the ones chasing the innovation.
You'd think so, but I think he respects the game too much to be bitter about it. He actually calls it exciting. He sees that Erasmus is playing 4D chess. He realizes that to beat the Boks now, you aren't just fighting 15 giant athletes on the pitch. You are fighting a system that is constantly updating its own software.
So when we look at this greatest rivalry series coming up, it's not just a physical contest, it's a total clash of philosophies.
It really is. You have the Boks, who have successfully hybridized their DNA. They still have the traditional South African steel, the scrum, the maul, the brutal defense, but they've grafted on this New Zealand-influenced attack via Tony Brown. They're a much more complete organism now.
It's terrifying for the rest of the world, honestly.
It is. And the synthesis of all this is that the Springboks aren't winning just because they train harder or lift heavier weights. Everyone at the elite international level trains incredibly hard. Everyone lifts heavy weights. The Boks are staying ahead because they are thinking differently. They are importing knowledge that perfectly complements their existing strengths.
It's that knowledge gap concept again. Rassie realized he couldn't generate the necessary innovation from within his own existing circle. He had to outsource the innovation to get the final result.
And that is what sustains the success. You know, winning one World Cup can sometimes be a perfect storm of a good team peaking at exactly the right time, but winning back-to-back and then dominating the Rugby championship afterwards, that requires evolution. Because if you stand still in this sport, you get eaten.
It brings a whole new meaning to adapt or die, doesn't it?
It really does. And Tana Umaga, looking from the outside in, has nailed it. It's diversity of thought. It's the willingness to be wrong so that the team can be right.
That is such a solid takeaway. Okay, so let's summarize the logic here before we wrap up. We have Rassie Erasmus, the mad scientist. He changes the physical game with his wild bench splits. Then he realizes the attack needs to evolve too, so he checks his ego, completely ignores the historical rivalry, and hires a Kiwi, Tony Brown.
Right. He embraces the uncomfortable idea to avoid the trap of same system, same mistakes.
And, as Tana Umaga says, that is just smart.
It's arguably the smartest thing you can do in high-performance sports.
This has been such a cool discussion. It makes me look at the upcoming matches with a totally different lens now. I'm not just watching for the big tackles. I'm watching for those little innovations that Tony Brown has cooked up behind the scenes.
Absolutely. You're watching the chess match between the coaching boxes just as much as the physical game on the grass.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. We've talked a lot about Rassie Erasmus and Tony Brown today. But bring this back to your own life for a second. In your work, or your creative projects, or even your social circle, are you surrounding yourself with people who think exactly like you do?
It's a tough question to answer, honestly.
It really is. Are you in an echo chamber where everyone has the same answers to the same questions? Or are you brave enough to go out and find a Tony Brown? Someone who challenges your assumptions and maybe even annoys you a little bit because they see the world differently.
Because that friction might just be the exact thing that takes you to the next level.
Exactly. Just something to mull over. We would love to hear your thoughts on the Boka's evolution and Tana Umaga's theory. Drop a comment. Let us know if you think diversity of thought is the real MVP here.
And definitely tell us who your Tony Brown is.
Yes. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to Rugby Obsession. We are building a great community of people who love diving deep into this game, and we want you in it.
It's the best way to stay ahead of the curve, just like Rassie.
Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.